Now, Lorna, this is fairly common that in this time of year that there's flood issues, but how does this year compare to others?
Okay, so this is the second worst flood in 100 years.
Wow.
And the river has crested now, the waters have crested. And there's some amazing lessons that are coming out of being persistent flood fighters. You know, my first instinct is, well, move. You know, we should maybe move away from those danger zones. But you can't in Manitoba because the rivers are everywhere and the communities have been established there for so long. And Winnipeg has a fascinating example to give in how it built its ditch, its Duff's Ditch, they call it around there. And at the time when they built it in the 60s, it was the second largest earth-moving project next to the Panama Canal. So that was like 47 kilometers wide. It keeps Winnipeg dry. Winnipeg right now would be 10 to 12 feet underwater, great parts of it. And so what's happening now in the rural areas is they've watched the lessons of Winnipeg and they've said, work with us to see if we can also stay dry. And the first thing they've learned is that the water is the enemy, not the people. So this is the year they're letting people stay in their homes to flight. Take a listen to Reeve Martin here.
Not compulsory. We are very hard on the fact that we want to try and make sure everybody has a choice. And if you along with choices and the freedom of choice comes responsibility. So if you're staying back, there's things that we want you to do. But we do.
Like what?
Like you have a boat, you have food, you have water, you have cell phones, and to promise to communicate with us when you're out there on that island that we know you're okay.
And why was it important to give people the choice to stay on their property even though it might be dangerous?
It is, we live in a free country. And along with that freedom comes responsibility. And that's why that's what we based it on. People want to stay and take care of their own possessions.
So they really want to stay and fight.
Last at 97, at the worst flood of the century, some homes were lost just by an inch or 2 inches of water. Their basements were damaged. If they would have been allowed to stay in the property and keep the pumps going or whatever, put the dike up another level, they could have protected their property. So that's one thing they've learned. Work with the people. And the other thing, here's a clip coming now from the Deputy Reeve of the arm of Rosa Norton. This is just like a little microcosm of how thankful people are that we have a tax system and a cooperation between the provincial government and the federal government so that towns like Rosa Norton, 200 homes, can build a dike. And all these 200 home people each chipped in to cover $2 million of that cost. And the rest comes from our tax dollars. Take a listen to how thankful they are.
We have to acknowledge the hard work and the money that, the taxpayers of Canada were here to help us, and they're a part of the solution as well. So that's a big thanks to all of those people, to everyone who have allowed us to live here safely.
And how much cooperation has it taken, Rolf?
Well, it took it took a lot of work. It took a lot of planning. It took a lot of local people to coordinate and identify the best way in which to protect this community, particularly.
So a lot of it's about neighbors just cooperating together and blessing each other.
Yes, and being good neighbors. And so it's a really great example. And I don't want to underplay how extremely serious it is in the north of Winnipeg, where Selkirk, the cottage area, got wiped out, and now where the Fisher River is completely flooded, the Peguis Indian Reserve. And this is new areas to be battling the flood. It hasn't hit that bad up north below. And we can learn something from watching the lessons that they've done in the south. Here's a clip of Reeve Martin's again. Now realize these guys have fought 7 floods, 7 of them. And so they've learned something. And what Reeve Martin says is, look, it's going to come to your backyard. You just don't know what kind of disaster is going to hit you. Take a listen to his perspective here, Reeve Martin's.
We all live in a disaster-prone area wherever we are. We've got a disaster that we know how to we can control. We've learned how. We have controlled it, and are doing, I think, a pretty good job of controlling it. The emotional stress has been. We had 1 day of this. This is the second biggest flood in history. We only had 1 day of anxiety where people were anxious of some of the things happening. Back in '97, I think we had almost 3 weeks of that kind of anxiety. So what a difference.
And so right now it's still all hands on deck time, isn't it?
It is, and this example of hope from the south is good to say to the north what is possible when a community hangs in there. And like I said, this is the 7th time the south has fought that flood there in that community of Rosenort. And it is all hands on deck still. And you know, 100 Huntley Street was there in '97. Remember, you guys, we were there for weeks actually, and you started a whole big campaign to care for that area and to fund Mennonite disaster services. This year that kind of funding won't be necessary because the structures are in place, because the federal government is able to increase the aid to the area. But they will still need volunteers to shovel out afterwards. And I want to just show you a little clip, guys, of Mennonite Disaster Service and the kind of speed they've had going into this. This is Carrie Ides. Take a listen.
When a homeowner needs a little help and you make a phone call in this community saying, look, we need a little bit of dike building, you know, you can expect there will be people there within 30 minutes as a rule, or you'll get the help you need.
And so now it's kind of a calling all volunteers type of a thing.
Yeah, there's about, probably my guess is about 10 days of waiting while the floodwaters finish cresting. Well, they have finished cresting, but while they just start that work of subsiding, and we need to pray for that great weather, for sunny skies, and then as they subside, really there's going to need to be all hands on deck to just be part of that raking, cleaning, shoveling out the mud, helping families and homes get back together. I mean, I just loved what Carrie said, you know, if you need help within 30 minutes, we can get you help to build a dike. That is amazing, but it won't be quite as exciting after the fact when it's cleanup time, and you'll still need the volunteers then.